We welcome to Physics Bridge Course Session 3. In this session, we are going to recall scalar quantities and vector quantities, and also we are going to analyze various physical quantities coming under these categories. Scalar. Scalar quantity is one which has magnitude only, but vector quantity is one which has both magnitude and direction. You are able to observe in this picture a car moving. Here, when you consider the speed, it is going to be a real number. That is going to be its magnitude, that is numerical value. We need not consider about the direction, and so the speed of the car is a scalar quantity. But at the same time, in the cross view, you may be able to see a car moving along a direction, and at which it makes angle theta 30 degree with the horizontal. Here we consider the car is moving along the direction maybe in northeast. Here the direction is also included. So the quantity velocity is considered. That means direction is also induced. That's why velocity is a vector quantity.
What is a vector quantity? A vector quantity is a one which is described by both magnitude and direction. Geometrically, a vector is a directed line segment. In physics, certain quantities can be described only by vectors. Here, in this line segment, the arrow mark represents the head of the vector, and the other side represents the tail of the vector, and the length of the segment represents its magnitude, and the direction of the head represents the direction in which the object is moving. So two vectors have the same magnitude and direction, then they are considered as same vectors.
Yes, students, you will be learning these vectors in the name of parallel vectors. Why? They have identical direction and magnitude. And suppose if two vectors are equal, they are known as equal vectors, and two vectors are perpendicular to each other and they are known as orthogonal vectors, and few more vectors like antiparallel vectors and so on. It will be dealt in your +1 textbook. Now, to make you clear about what is magnitude of vector, illustration is shown. You may observe a boy measuring the height of another boy. The best way to describe the magnitude of a vector is to measure the length of the vector, since length of a vector is proportional to the magnitude it represents. So mere height, suppose if it is 150 centimeter on 152 centimeter, it represents the length of the vector, that is the magnitude of the vector. And that's what is illustrated in the another figure also. You may see a vector with an arrowhead. It makes an angle of inclination that describes its direction. So length alone represents the magnitude, that is size or length alone represents its magnitude, and arrowhead gives the direction of the vector. And this angle, you may ask, what are we going to do with angle? With this angle, it is learnt or it is dealt with another concept known as resolution of vectors, which will be learnt in detail in your textbook.
Here you might have noticed a car followed by another car. They keep a certain distance between them, which is a scalar quantity. Look at the another example. Here an insect is moving in random direction and reaches the point B. Here if you measure the total length of the path it covers, then it gives the displacement. But if you measure the shortest distance between A and B, it gives a displacement of the object. That is the difference between distance and displacement. Velocity is a vector quantity because it has direction. So if you consider the propulsion of a rocket, the space shuttle has both speed as well as direction. So it has velocity. And look at this picture, a man is weighing his weight. Here the weight of the person is acting downward, so weight is also a vector quantity. Weight is a vector quantity because it has direction. It acts in the downward direction in this example. And what are the differences between a scalar and a vector? A scalar quantity is the one which has magnitude but no direction. And a vector quantity is the one which has both magnitude and direction. Some examples for scalar quantities are distance, speed, mass, energy, density, power, length, time, work and temperature. For example, if you measure the mass of an object, we can give its magnitude only 500 kilogram or 20 gram like that. We cannot represent it in its direction, so it is a scalar quantity. Similarly, if you take work, we can say what is the work done. It will give the magnitude only, but we cannot say in what direction the work was done. So it is also a scalar quantity. Like that, the temperature. All these quantities will give the magnitude only, which doesn't include the direction. Whereas here, if you take these vector quantities, displacement, velocity, weight, force, momentum, impulse and current density, here they have magnitude as well as direction. In what direction the object displaces. Similarly, what is the momentum of the object? In all these cases, we include the direction also. That's why we consider these quantities as vector quantities. If you take current density, it is also a vector. In your lower classes, you have studied current is a scalar, whereas current density is a vector quantity that you will study in your higher classes.
And there is a query, student. Is area a scalar or a vector? Generally speaking, area is a scalar quantity, but when you come to learn higher physics, it is very important to know that area sometimes is used as a vector quantity. Let me quote an example. Here in your higher physics, you will learn about flux. Flux means amount of something passing through or flowing through any surface area. Here something means water, electric field lines or magnetic field lines or anything as you like. Area plays a vital role in flux. Flux is actually scalar, but flux is always described as something into area. So, have you ever seen area should be a vector by doing vector dot product so that we get flux? So it is incomplete without telling the direction of area vector. Basically, any line drawn perpendicular to the area is called its normal, and this normal is called the area vector. Yes, it can be the direction. At a time we use only one direction. So area is sometimes considered as a vector quantity, but
volume is a scalar quantity. It refers to the amount of space that an object occupies and therefore has magnitude but gives no information about direction. Therefore, volume is always a scalar quantity.
apart from these examples under scalar quantities, you will learn about potential. Electric potential is a scalar quantity. Then electric flux, magnetic flux, all scalar quantities. But under vector quantities, yeah, current is also a scalar quantity. But under vector quantities, all electric field, magnetic field, torque. Furthermore, about vector quantities are dipole moment. It will be learnt in your +2, which forms the basis of all higher physics.
Now we'll see in detail what is distance and what is displacement. The length of the path followed by an object is called distance. If an object's path is straight, the distance is the length of the straight line between start and finish. Here, it starts here and it finishes here. So this is the length of the path and this will give you the distance. If an object's path is not straight, if it is like this, then the distance is the length of the path if you were to straighten it out and measure it the way you would measure the length of a curved shoelace. So you have to straighten it out and you have to measure the length of the object. This you studied in your lower classes. Now it is trending, is it not? Coronavirus. To stop coronavirus, one of the important thing you have to do is social distancing. Keep a distance of 1 meter. Here the distance represents the length of the path between these two persons. So this is a simple example for distance. Then what is speed? It is also a scalar quantity. It is defined as a rate of change of distance or distance covered by the time taken. Distance is equal to speed into time, or s is equal to distance is measured with the represented by the term s is equal to speed into time. Now what is displacement? Displacement is usually measured or defined along a straight line. The standard unit of displacement in the international system of units is meter. Now look at this picture. The man is walking along a straight road and a car takes a curved path and it reaches the end. So this is the shortest distance. That's why it is called displacement. And the total length of the path is called distance. That is what represented in this diagram also. So the definition for velocity is the speed and the direction of motion of the object is represented here. It has unit of meter per second. It has both magnitude as well as direction. An example for the velocity is the car moved at a velocity of 20 meter per second towards the east. Here 20 meter per second, 20 meter represents the distance covered and towards the east represents the direction. So velocity can be calculated by displacement by the time taken. Speed and velocity can be a little confusing for most of us. Well, the difference between speed and velocity is that speed gives us an idea of how fast an object is moving, whereas velocity not only tells us its speed but also tells us the direction the body is moving in.
Yeah, velocity is a vector quantity that signifies the magnitude of rate of change of position and also the direction of object's movement. But speed is the scalar quantity that signifies only the magnitude of rate of change of an object's movement. Here, if a car moves 25 meters per second in the direction of north, it comes under velocity, which is a vector quantity. But if a car moves irrespective of the direction, if we just describe only the distance covered by the car as 25 meters, then it is speed, which comes under scalar quantity. Our next step to think about what is an acceleration. The acceleration can be defined as the rate of change of velocity as a function of time, and it is measured in meter per second square, which is the SI unit of acceleration. You may just take any falling rock accelerated at a constant rate of 9.8 meter per second square. And in the GIF image, you may see a person riding on a bike. It is undertaking accelerated motion. Yeah. See, just observe this. Yeah, everything is falling out. Really, it's a tragedy. How does this happen? Because acceleration means a rate of change of velocity. Here, change in velocity describes change in speed, but also change in direction. And so, change in both causes such a tragedy. So how do you express this acceleration? Acceleration can be expressed as change in velocity by time taken. That is, final velocity minus initial velocity by time taken, and it is represented as symbolically, small a is equal to Vf, that is final velocity minus Vi, that is initial velocity by time taken is t. Let us move on to learn what is meant by uniform acceleration. Yes, just to observe this graph. You may see along x-axis time is taken in minutes, and along y-axis distance is taken in meters. You may observe the graph follows a straight line. That means an object which describes this motion covers equal distances in equal intervals of time. And so, here its velocity also changes equally in equal interval of time. That leads to a term known as uniform acceleration. So a body is said to possess uniform acceleration if its velocity increases by equal amount in equal intervals of time. For example, a car is moving 5 meters in every second. Every 5 seconds, then it is said to be moving with a uniform acceleration. ஒண்ணுல்ல ஒரு கார் வந்து ஒவ்வொரு 5 செகண்டுக்கும் 5 meters கரெக்டா மெயின்டைன் பண்ணி போயிட்டே இருக்கும்போது அதை நம்ம யூனிஃபார்ம் ஆக்சலரேஷன் நம்ம சொல்றோம். இந்த GIF image வந்து உனக்கு it will make you clear what is meant by exactly a uniform acceleration. Now we have another concept that what is meant by non-uniform acceleration and how can we compare this uniform acceleration with the non-uniform acceleration.
What is uniform acceleration? A body has a uniform acceleration if it travels in a straight line and its velocity increases by equal amount in equal intervals of time. Some examples for uniformly accelerated motion are: the motion of a freely falling body is an example of uniformly accelerated motion. The motion of a bicycle going down the slope of a road when the rider is not pedaling and wind resistance is negligible is also an example for uniform accelerated motion. Similarly, what is non-uniform acceleration? A body has a non-uniform acceleration if its velocity increases by unequal amounts in equal intervals of time. For every 5 seconds, if the body covers 5 meter, 10 meter, 12 meter, like that, for every 5 seconds it covers unequal distances, then it is said to be in non-uniform acceleration. Example of non-uniformly accelerated motion are: the speed of a car running on a crowded city road changes continuously at one moment the velocity of a car increases, whereas at another moment it decreases. So the movement of a car on a crowded city road is an example for non-uniform acceleration. One more acceleration is also there, which is called zero acceleration. Under what condition an object is under zero acceleration? If there is no change in velocity with respect to time. Time interval ஒரே time interval same velocity இருந்ததுனாக்கா, then the acceleration of the object is said to be zero. That is called zero acceleration. One more acceleration is also there, which is called retardation or deceleration, which means if the time increases and velocity decreases with respect to time, then it is called deceleration or retardation. So, non-uniform acceleration is said to possess, body is said to possess non-uniform acceleration if the velocity of the body changes by an unequal amount in equal intervals of time. For example, a car covering 3 meter in 1 second, 4 meter in second, and 7 meter in third second, and so on is said to be moving with non-uniform acceleration. Here you see girl is throwing an object. Here when it rises above, it is against the action of gravity, so the velocity decreases, and then when it is coming towards the ground, due to the action of gravity, the velocity increases. So this is an example for non-uniform acceleration. Here in this case also, the ball covers 1 meter per second square. That is, the acceleration is 1 meter per second squared in the first second, and in the another 1 second, the acceleration is 4 meter per second squared. So the acceleration changes for same interval of time because the velocity also changes, and this is coming under non-uniform acceleration. So the graph clearly indicates the non-uniform acceleration. Here along the x-axis time interval is represented Along the y-axis, distance is represented. This is for non-uniform motion. So if the distance covered is unequal with respect to same time interval, then it is called non-uniform motion. Similarly, if you represent it with the help of velocity along the y-axis, then that graph represents non-uniform acceleration. The next important quantity is the center of mass. What is center of mass? The center of mass is a point that represents the average location for the total mass of a system. It is simply, it can be defined as it is a point at which the entire mass of the system is supposed to be concentrated. Because a system consists of infinite number of particles with their own masses, and there is a particular point along which the entire mass is supposed to be concentrated. That point we call it as center of mass. The center of mass will remain constant during a collision. And here is a simple formula to calculate the center of mass. Center of mass is equal to m1 x1 plus m2 x2 by m1 plus m2, where m1 and m2 are the two different masses and x1 and x2 are the distances about the center. Using this formula, we can calculate the center of mass of any objects. Center of mass and stability. The center of mass of an object is the point at which we can think of the whole mass of the object to be concentrated. If an object is symmetrical, if it is having regular shape, then the center of mass is always on an axis of symmetry. Here, along the point of intersection, the center of mass acts. Here also, if you draw lines from the edges at the point of intersection, the center of mass acts. Look at these pictures. These are all some of the examples for center of mass. Here in the first picture, a man is balancing in a rope by keeping a long stick in his hand. With the help of this long stick, he can maintain the center of mass so that he is not falling down. The similar principle is explained in the other pictures also. So if you see in the second picture, the bottle is balanced by a small glass plate. What is the reason for that? It is also because of the center of mass. So the center of mass of the bottle and the center of mass of the glass are balanced at a particular point, which we call it as the center of mass for both these masses. The center of mass can be calculated by taking the masses you are trying to find the center of mass between and multiplying them by their positions. Then you add these together and divide that by the sum of all the individual masses. These are all examples for center of mass. The next important concept is center of gravity. What is center of gravity? It is a point at which weight is evenly dispersed or distributed and all sides are in balance. So if you look at this picture, these two children are balancing this seesaw. That is because the center of gravity lies at the center. And look at this picture here. The center of lift and center of gravity must be in opposite directions so that there will be balanced position or stability maintained in the case of an aeroplane. In a correctly loaded plane, center of gravity is in between the front and rear landing gears. The weight acts downwards at the center of gravity and the normal forces act upward at the front and at the back landing gear. The balance point is very important during flight because of its effect on the stability and performance of the aircraft. The center of gravity will move if the distribution of the load changes. Example, by passengers moving about or by transferring fuel from one tank to another. The center of gravity may move as the weight changes by fuel burning off or by parachutist leaping out. Always have your center of lift behind your center of mass. The closer the center of lift is to the center of mass, the more unstable the plane will be, meaning it is harder to control but is also easier to move about. Airplanes are designed so that their center of gravity falls between their wings. That way, when the wings produce lift, the upward force lifts the plane evenly. The tail's main purpose is to provide stability for the aeroplane, meaning that if the aeroplane is tilted off by a course of gust of wind, it can return to its original position. The tail includes control surfaces to control the plane. Here, some of the examples are given for center of gravity. Here, a man is moving on a large boat. And here, he is maintaining balance because he is moving about the center of gravity. And here all these stones are kept together. Without falling, they are all in a fixed position. It is also because the center of gravity lies along a straight line which keeps the stones in its position. And here also bird, and it is balanced by the finger of the man, which is also because of the center of gravity. Now you may wonder, what is the difference between center of gravity and center of mass? The center of gravity of an object is the point where the entire weight of the object seems to act. Here gravity represents weight, whereas the center of mass of an object is a point where the entire mass of the object seems to be concentrated. Here we are considering the mass. That is the difference between center of gravity and center of mass. In a uniform gravitational field, the center of mass is in the same place as the center of gravity. An alternative definition is that the center of mass or center of gravity of an object is a point through which a single force has no turning effect on the body.
Centripetal force. Here, the speed stays constant, but the direction changes. நீ பார்த்திருப்ப ஒருத்தந்த ஒரு மேன் சென்டர் பாயிண்ட்ல நிக்கிறான், கையில ஒரு பக்கெட்டை யூனிஃபார்ம் சர்க்குலர் மோஷன்ல ரொட்டேட் பண்றான். சப்போஸ் அவனுடைய அந்த ஹோல்ட் பண்ணி இருக்கிற ஸ்ட்ரிங் அருந்துருச்சுன்னா எந்த டைரக்ஷன்ல போய் பக்கெட் வேகுமோ அந்த டைரக்ஷன் தான் டான்ஜென்ஷியல் டைரக்ஷன். தட் இஸ் த டைரக்ஷன் ஆஃப் த வெலாசிட்டி. அப்போ இங்க பார்த்தேன்னா அவனோட சுற்றுற ஸ்பீடு சேமா தான் இருக்கும், கான்ஸ்டன்டா தான் இருக்கும். ஆனா ஒவ்வொரு பாயிண்ட்லயும் டைரக்ஷன் மாறிட்டே வருது. அத நீ அந்த டைரக்ஷன்ல ரெட் கலர் ஏரோ மார்க்லயும் பார்த்துட்டே வரலாம். அப்போ இங்க வந்து ஆக்சிலரேஷன் நம்ம என்ன சொல்லுவோம்னா சென்ட்ரிபீட்டல் ஆக்சிலரேஷன் அப்படின்னு சொல்லுவோம். Then what is this centripetal force? It is the force that makes any object to describe a circular motion, and it is given by the expression F centripetal is equal to mv squared by r, where v squared by r is the centripetal acceleration. Separately want to describe v is the velocity, r is the radius of the circular path that is described. And this figure clearly shows the action of centripetal force, and this centripetal force always acts towards the center. Direction of the centripetal force is always towards the center, and so it makes the object to describe a circular path.
And a very good example for centripetal force is the moon is revolving around the earth. That is because of the gravitational force which provides the necessary centripetal force to move around the earth in the circular path. Some of the examples for centripetal forces are given. Friction, as in the turning car example. So, in order to avoid skidding, there must be a frictional force between the tire and the road. So, the frictional force between the tire and the road provides the necessary centripetal force to avoid the skidding. The next one is the tensional force. It as in a rock whirling around while attached to a string. ஒரு கல்லுல கயிறை கட்டி சுத்துறோம்னாக்கா அது ஒரு சர்க்குலர் பாத் எடுக்குது. இங்க எந்த ஃபோர்ஸ் ஆக்ட் பண்ணுது between the hand and the stone? The tensional force. அது எந்த டைரக்ஷன்ல அது ஆக்ட் பண்ணுது? along the string. So this is also an example for centripetal force. Or the tension in the chains on a swing at the path. Here also the centripetal force is acting. Gravity, the force of gravity between the earth and sun keeps the earth moving in a nearly circular orbit. So the gravitational force also provides a centripetal force. So the centripetal force is provided by the frictional force between the road and the tires. This force is reduced if the road is wet or icy. That's why some of the cars were skidding. The next equal and opposite force to the centripetal force is the centrifugal force. It is an pseudo force. What is pseudo force? It is an imaginary force experienced only in non-inertial frames of reference. This force is necessary in order to explain Newton's laws of motion in an accelerated frame of reference. Centrifugal force acts along the radius but is directed away from the center of the circle. Direction of the centrifugal force is always opposite to that of the centripetal force, and the expression for the centrifugal force remains the same as that of the centripetal force. F is equal to mv squared by r, and centrifugal force is always present in rotating bodies. So if you look at this picture, the centripetal force is acting towards the it is always acting towards the center. Whereas if you consider the centrifugal force, according to Newton's law, it will try to take away the object from its position. So it is acting in the opposite direction. That represents the centrifugal force.
This is also another example for centrifugal force. Now man is standing on an axis and he is able to rotate the iron ball, and it describes certain velocity, and the hand is holding the string, provides necessary centripetal force, and you may see equal but opposite centrifugal force also acting on the ball outwardly.
வெளிநோக்கி ஒரு ஈர்ப்பு விசையை உணர்வான். கையில இருந்து வச்சு சுத்தும் போது ஒரு ஈர்ப்பு விசை, வெளியில ஈர்க்கிற ஒரு விசையை உணர்வான். அதுதான் நம்ம என்னன்னு சொல்றோம்னா சென்ட்ரிஃபியூகல் ஃபோர்ஸ் அப்படின்னு சொல்றோம். அந்த சென்ட்ரிஃபியூகல் ஃபோர்ஸ் இருக்கிறதுனால தான் இவன் தூக்கி போற அந்த ஷார்ட் புட் எப்படி ரொம்ப லாங் டிஸ்டன்ஸை அது கவர் பண்ணுது. Now we'll compare the centrifugal force and centripetal force.
If an object moving in a circle experiences an outward force, then this force is called centrifugal force. If the object travels in a uniform speed in a circular path, it is called centripetal force. அதாவது centripetal force தமிழ்ல மைய நோக்கு விசைன்னு சொல்லுவாங்க. அதே சமயம் centrifugal வெளியில பிடிச்சி இருக்கிற மாதிரியான ஒரு விசையை நம்ம உணரலாம். The object has the direction along the center of the circle from center approaching the object, but here under centripetal force the object has the direction along the center of the circle from the object approaching the center. For example, we can say mud flying off a tire is one of the examples for centrifugal force. A satellite orbiting a planet, as we discussed earlier, is an example for centripetal force. Thank you for watching this session, students. I hope it will be very useful for you to learn fundamental concepts in physics. Thank you.